Ritu Talks. Oh yeah, I did a video featuring our speaker quite a while back, wherein she was pushing authenticity as, effectively, a workplace faith-based initiative. But now she's finally calling out the cultural appropriation of yoga. Well, golly, whatever was the last straw to finally push her into this righteous declaration of offense?
So a while back, I was at a social event thing and I was with a group of people I had just met. And there was a white woman who had just shared this fantastic new fitness class she had done. And she said, I went to something, and for anonymity's sake, let's call it body pump yoga.
Sounds kinky.
And I looked at her, and in my head, I'm like, WTF? What the fuck? I looked at her and I politely asked, so what's body pump yoga?
It still sounds kinky.
And she went on to explain that it was a combination of body pump, where you're using weights to build your muscles, and then intermittently are then doing yoga stretches.
So, weight aerobics? Is this a new concept or something?
And it was so fantastic, and her instructor had put it all together and pulling some yoga practices in that she loved and blah, blah, blah. And all I know is that I was feeling through my body a combination of what the F?
What the fuck?
And instant activation, irritation, and rage, quite frankly. So I get asked a lot about what are my thoughts about the cultural appropriation of yoga, basically how yoga is being adapted in the Anglo world, in Canada, the US, the UK.
The Anglo world. I haven't heard that one before. And how it is being adapted. Maybe our speaker isn't aware of this, but yoga has been adapted by the Anglo world for, well, at least as long as I've been alive, and probably longer. I'm not going to go into a history lesson on yoga, but I do know that my mother owned this book when I was a kid, and it was published in 1979. So, I don't know. I think you might be just a little late to the party on feeling yucky that yoga has crossed your preferred cultural and apparently racial boundaries.
And I think I get asked this because I'm brown, my parents are from India.
You get asked about yoga because you're brown and your parents are from India. Seems a little racially presumptuous, to put it nicely. But then, I guess that is why we're here.
Basically, how yoga is being adapted in the Anglo world. South Asian, I am a trained yoga teacher. I am a diversity and inclusion expert, and then I also am a social justice activist. And here's what I would say to you.
A yoga instructor, a diversity expert, and a social justice activist. And what you're going to say to me is that, as a diversity expert, you understand that yoga can benefit from a multitude of perspectives and experiences. That, as a yoga instructor, you know there's no one way to teach yoga. That, as a social justice activist, everyone should be treated equally in yoga. Is that what you have to say to me?
I have a really hard time. It really sucks watching what's happening with yoga out there, and I want to talk openly about it. It's hard for me because, number one, yoga is so beautiful, and I think it's so great that it's spreading globally and through the masses. It means union, and I love the way in which it's bringing people together and actually helping them to live better lives.
But...
However,
Oh, however.
What I found really, really challenging is the way in which yoga has now become so watered down in the Anglo world.
White people have made yoga impure. Got it.
Yoga is an Indian or South Asian practice that has very strong traditional and cultural roots to it. But what we have now been seeing in the Anglo world is the misuse of language, stripping the practice of its holistic nature, not using the correct terms, not mentioning the Indian roots, and so much more.
So anyone teaching, performing, or participating in yoga who does not do so in a way that you prefer is what? An intruder? A heretic? Should they be barred from taking part unless they follow the yoga laws of conduct? And who will be writing those laws again?
In other words, what we're basically seeing is the whitewashing of yoga, which is cultural appropriation. So, what do I want to have happen instead? I want us to teach yoga. I want us to study yoga, but I want us to talk about the Indian roots. I want us to study the Indian roots and spread the Indian roots and the traditions in a very authentic way.
There's your favorite word, authentic. So, white people teaching yoga are appropriating Indian culture when they don't also provide people at the gym a history lesson and cultural sensitivity class on a form of exercise that has become such an abstract concept over the years, it's more like an easy to remember brand name for a multitude of different styles and activities. Sort of like how not every facial tissue is a Kleenex, but when you say Kleenex, people have a pretty good idea of what you're referring to. But regardless, again, how exactly does our speaker propose to cleanse the world of inauthentic yoga instructors? Or is she just complaining into the wind because she doesn't like white people doing yoga?
What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a line across social media. Check my site, rithubasine.com. While you're there, sign up for my mailing list and watch for next time.
A website? A mailing list? You mean like over the internet? The internet? Which was created by a series of white guys? Well, I think you need to provide us all some context of the history of the internet and its roots in white culture before you use it or encourage others to use it as well. Otherwise, well, that's cultural appropriation. Yeah, you see how ridiculous and kind of racist it sounds when it's turned back on you? But hey, what do I know? I mean, I am Anglo.
In the Anglo world,
As always, thank you for watching.